Taken from the headline of a 1998 newspaper, only fanatics can continue to deny that divorce has harmful effects on children. If this were a medical disease, it would prompt demands for a national campaign of eradication. With knowledge today that 50% of marriages in North America today are expected to end in divorce, the repercussions of divorce have evidently become a subject matter of concern, especially on the child development. It is now common knowledge at this point that divorce is the second most prevalent adverse childhood event, affecting between 30 to 40% of children before they reach the age of 15. This brings us to our topic of concern for today, divorce and child development. I'm Isabella Bonilla.
I'm Seth Baum.
I'm Gabriela Lynn.
And I'm Leah Rivera, and today we will be addressing the question, since the late 1900s, to what extent has divorce affected child development from ages 6 to 18 in the United States? And our argument in response is that since the late 1900s, divorce has negatively affected child development from ages 6 to 18 in the United States to the extent in which obstructive behavior is prominent.
So in order to fully grasp the concept of the harms divorce poses on child development, we must first pinpoint the presence of interparental conflict. This brings me to our first claim: an impaired sense of safety and security in the family system imposed by interparental conflict interferes with the child's capacity to regulate emotions and behaviors in the face of stress. Carrie O'Hara actually had findings that proved that the exposure to high interparental conflict was associated with a higher prevalence of diagnosed mental disorder. We can see this here in the graph she collected from her data, showing the means and standard deviations for child mental health outcomes by conflict trajectories after divorce. Carrie O'Hara decided to organize her data into 4 different conflict trajectories, 2 of which I will be discussing today: the low decreasing trajectory and the high decreasing conflict trajectory. The low decreasing trajectory included 148 children who experienced low interparental conflict right after the divorce, and the high decreasing trajectory represents 71 children who experienced high levels of interparental conflict after the divorce. As you can see, the high decreasing trajectory beats the low decreasing trajectory in all aspects when it comes to internalizing and externalizing problems at baseline and at the 6-year follow-up, according to both Mother and Youth Report, as you can see by a higher number of 59, 56, 55, and 54, and so on. Children in the high decreasing trajectory also had a range of mental health disorders, including ADHD, OCD, attention deficit disorder, major depressive disorder, and oppositional defiant disorder. They also had higher marijuana use and a higher number of sexual partners across all the boards.
Thank you, Isabella. Now on to our second claim. Depending on the age of the child and the corresponding developmental stages, certain children will respond more negatively than others. In particular, school-age children were found to have higher levels of hyperactive behavior in comparison to their older and younger counterparts. Children whose parents divorced around the age of 12, have a significantly higher mean of 0.77. Even though children at the age of 8 and 10, whose parents also divorced around this time, have hyperactive behavior, with it being 0.28 and 0.25. Students at the age of 12 and particularly exhibited higher hyperactive behavior. With this being said, problem behavior may start to arise around this pubertal age.
Another important topic to discuss are the risk factors associated with divorce that contribute to negative outcomes of children. Risk factors associated with divorce are most responsible for increased risk of behavioral impairment. Divorce effects reveal that children exhibit externalizing behavior problems after divorce, especially those who have fewer financial resources prior to the divorce. For example, children with a low income have financial stress, lack of educational resources, and crime in the neighborhood. These are all factors that make it harder to adjust after a divorce. Poor parenting skills impact children negatively and positively prior to and post-divorce. According to Jennifer Weaver, she states that increasing externalizing and internalizing behaviors have affected based on teachers' ratings as well as parents' ratings. As you can see here, less sensitive mothers, the top line, has the highest internalization all the way from kindergarten throughout 9th grade. As a result, lower pre-divorce sensitive mothers increase children's internal rates after divorce.
We evaluated 2 solutions to combat the negative effects of divorce on children. Our first but weaker solution is joint family therapy. Joint family therapy more so works on one-on-one relationships like parent-to-parent or child-to-parent relationships, as shown by experiences. Raul was married for 30 years and divorced his wife, but they went through family therapy, which helped him have a positive structure and keep in contact with not only his kids, but also his friends and his loved ones. Our second, but stronger solution is coping strategies. Coping strategies can undermine the security, but also the well-being of the child. If you look to the graph shown in the 2019 longitudinal study taken by 240 kids, you can see right here as positive cognitive restructuring in externalizing problems, it's minus 12%, but also in the internalizing problems, it's minus 8%. But also if you look at the coping efficacy, it's minus 0.51 in the externalizing problems in the youth report, but also minus 44 in the internalizing problems report. Coping strategies help the child deal with emotion-based trauma and stuff like that. But also, however, there's also limitations to the coping strategies, like negative ones, like drinking, drugs, and self-harm. But there's also positives to it, which help the kids do better and focus and make the kids better overall. That's our works cited. Any questions?
I wish there was more people to clap. Take a half a step back, please. Thank you. All right, there you go. Perfect. All right, Isabella, here we go. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem that you guys identified?
Gabriella's definitely had the most impact on my understanding of our topic, especially because her perspective was specifically on the social impact of divorce, and it was so similar to mine, which was behavior. So taking her input and mine together, it helped me broaden our understanding, especially when it came to discovering our solution for coping strategies. It really touched on both social and behavioral, thus providing me more information on social that would combine with my own, creating our 3 claims that touched mainly both on social and behavioral rather than their other 2. Therefore, Gabriella's perspective definitely affected me and my way of thinking the most.
All right, thank you. Leah, what's an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' IRRs that you decided to not include in the presentation, and why?
It wasn't more like excluding a whole aspect of the of an IRR, but like Gabriella's, we merged it with Izzy's instead of making it like its own like separate claim and all that. We merged it with Izzy because it was really similar to Izzy's, as Gabriella's was like social effects and Izzy's was behavioral effects. So we just merged it instead of taking it out, but we like didn't put it completely as like one of the things.
All right, thank you. Seth, what is a way in which your team's solution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
My research was on the relationships as well with financial. So I feel like joint family therapy could definitely help with more the financial aspect, as not so much as coping. I feel like coping would have been better for making like relationships and stuff like that. But for example, like back to the parent-on-parent aspect of it, I feel like if they were to go to family therapy, they could maybe figure out a way, that way they all benefit from whether being a better financial situation or, as seen in some divorces, child support and alimony.
All right, then Ella, last one. Describe an argument from one of your peers' reports that makes you think differently about the team's solution.
Isabella's perspective behavior effects. And our resolution was coping strategies. So behavior problems, she talked about how if there's different ages and how like infants or school age children, it depends on how you can strategize with vulnerability.